Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Double Digit Hockey Show. I am your host, John Easthope, and I thank you for joining me here today on the show. We go guestless today. There's no guest on the show, but that doesn't mean we can't have a good show and have a good time. And that's what we're going to bring you here today. Welcome to the show here on ASTV Productions. Thank you for joining me. This week's show, we have a lot to get through around the world of the hockey world. Give me a chance here this week with no guest to share my thoughts and opinions on things that I've seen around the world of hockey, from the National Hockey League to the Western Hockey League, maybe a little bit of OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, and the Quebec Major Junior League. If we get some time, definitely going to jump into the Alberta Junior Hockey League as well, as they get set to kick off their season. A few news and notes from around there. But I'm going to start with the news that shocked the hockey world, and that is Walter Gretzky, the hockey dad of Canada, passing away the other day, late last week. My condolences go out to the Gretzkys and to that entire family. Walter Gretzky was one of those iconic figures in the hockey world. And I never had the chance to meet him, but you read all the stories and how he touched people and how he really helped Wayne in his career from the get-go. And Wayne gives a lot of the credit to Walter for the way his dad treated him. So condolences to the Gretzkys. He will be missed, definitely. Canada's hockey dad passing away, unfortunately. He was 82 years old, so I wanted to start there and give my thoughts on Walter Gretzky. There's no easy transition out of something like that, so what we're just going to do is we're just going to softly go into what we're going to talk about today. Don't forget to follow my show, Double Digit Hockey, on Twitter at Double Digit HKY. That's Double Digit Hockey on Twitter, and you can follow me as well at Vintage Johnny 84 on social media. Always up for a good hockey chat, so go ahead and add me there, and we'll give a nice good chat there on all things hockey. Bring your questions, and I will definitely do my best to answer my opinion. Love doing that with folks, and we'll do some more of that as we go along as well. Let's start in the National Hockey League. We'll start from the pro leagues and we'll work our way down as we go through some things. Going to take a dart around the North Division. A lot of people calling it the Canadian Division, whatever you will. We've seen some interesting storylines. So we're going to go from the West Coast to the East Coast. And we're just going to give my thoughts quickly based on each of those NHL teams. And then we'll go around the horn around the U.S. divisions. There's not as much to talk about for those divisions, but we'll give it a go anyways, and we'll have a good time with it. So let's get started here. We're going to start on the West Coast. The Vancouver Canucks. Jim Benning had a press conference late last week and just saying that he is disappointed where the team stands and that they're going to continue to work and do what's the best for the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks in their last 10 games have 5 wins to 4 losses and 1 overtime defeat. They are currently going to be in a series versus the Habs. We'll see how that goes for them. That's a very important series for the Canucks and the Habs. The Canucks seem to be falling out of the playoff picture, sitting dead second last in the division. They're ways back now of Montreal for that last playoff spot. Montreal with games in hand on Calgary and Vancouver. So with the two teams chasing Montreal, we'll get to Montreal in just a minute here. It's a big, important game for Vancouver, and it's important for them, not for the sake of making the playoffs. This game for Vancouver is important for them in the evaluation process that started. There are about 30 games left per team, give or take a game here or there. A big evaluation process for the Vancouver Canucks. They have 2 big RFA free agents coming up in Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes that they need to make sure that they lock up. And so there's a valuation for the bottom part of that roster. That's very important, of who they want to keep around and who they need to move on from. We also have seen, though, some good goaltending from Thatcher Demko. He seems to have taken that number 1 job and has seemed to have provided a little bit of stability in goal, which is what the Canucks were hoping for when they didn't re-sign Jacob Markstrom in the offseason and elected to go with the younger Demko. He seems to be showing up right as the Canucks would like him to do. So the big thing for Vancouver as well, besides the evaluation process, is they need to continue to develop. They've got some young kids in that lineup. Hoglander comes to mind. Ulevy on the back end also comes to mind. There's a couple other guys in the Utica comments right now that wonder if they get called up. They'd have to go through the quarantine, of course. But I wonder if they get called up and a chance to show some stuff as the season for Vancouver will wind down. Playoffs are a ways away for Vancouver. There is a small hope, but they have to go on a big run in order for them to catch up in the North Division. They are well back of everyone here. But the good news for the teams that are at the bottom part of the division is the teams that they are chasing are right there. They're playing them every night, and so you have an opportunity here for the proverbial 4-point game. So Vancouver on the outside looking in, it's looking more along the lines of an evaluation and a development back half of the season for them rather than going for the playoffs. Let's move over here to Alberta, where I am situated. We'll start up with the Edmonton Oilers. They last week had a really rough go with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who shut them out in 2 of 3 games and only gave up a single goal in the third game. So 3 huge defeats for the Edmonton Oilers. But Saturday, Hockey Night in Canada, they were able to get back on track versus the Calgary Flames. They didn't start the game as well as you would have liked if you were an Oilers fan. But the longer that game went on Saturday in Hockey Night in Canada, the more strength you saw from the Oilers as they broke out of that slump and were able to take that hockey game. They transferred that effort on Saturday into what we've seen this week so far versus the Ottawa Senators. They've treated Ottawa how you should treat Ottawa. We'll get to Ottawa in a minute here as well. But they've treated Ottawa like the bad team that Ottawa is. Ottawa's going to work hard for you, but they're not going to get you much else. So Edmonton able to get back on track. Connor McDavid's back on track. He went pointless for Toronto, and people were asking questions. Draisaitl with only the 1 assist for Toronto. They asked questions there, but the big guys have shown up. The Oilers, those 3 losses last week to Toronto are the only 3 losses they have in their last 10. They sit at 7-3 in their last 10, and they take on the Senators again tonight. So big games for Edmonton because they are sitting right in that 3rd spot, trying to climb back up into 2nd spot in the division. I almost think it's safe to say that they are a playoff team. If I were to put money on it, I think that they are a playoff team. They seem to have found a groove here under Coach Dave Tippett. They've got some young defensemen that are starting to backfill that bottom part of their defensive group and have seemed to have found a nice little rhythm. The play of Mike Smith has calmed down in that goal and helped solidify it. Koskinen, still a little bit of inconsistency there for him. But that being said, the Oilers seem to be trending in the right direction. And the big thing for Edmonton is the resurgence of a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi, who has moved himself back to the NHL and has seemed to have changed his game around. So perfect for the Oilers coming up here. Another good solid weekend ahead for them as well as the Edmonton Oilers continue to push to. They're still trying to hope to catch Toronto at the top of the division here, and I wouldn't count that out based on the way that they played against Calgary and the Ottawa Senators in the last week or so here. Speaking of the Flames, they came off that defeat against the Edmonton Oilers, but the bigger news in Calgary heading into the week, here's they face off the Habs for a few games, is that big coaching change. So late last week on the Thursday, the Flames relieve Jeff Ward of his coaching duties. They bring in Daryl Sutter to replace him, and it's joyous around Calgary. And they go out and they drop a game to the Ottawa Senators, lose that game to the Oilers, and then they take on the Montreal Canadiens this week. Daryl Sutter has a big task in front of them with this team, regardless of their schedule left. They have about 30 games left. There's one thing that lies ahead for Daryl Sutter as he takes over this team. The Flames have been the most inconsistent team you can watch in the National Hockey League this season. They do not give you a consistent effort even in games, and it's infuriating to watch if you are a Flame fan, or I'm assuming the front office of the Flames. So with Sutter and the coaching change, that's his goal here, is to fix the inconsistency. The Flames sit a couple of points back of Montreal. Montreal has those games in hand for the final spot of the playoff race. And you got to win these games against Montreal to give yourself a chance to pull close or even with Montreal. You're going to need some help if you're the Flames to make that final playoff spot, because the Flames have been so inconsistent. They haven't been able to string together any wins. Only once this season have they gone on a 3-game winning streak, and only 3 times have they done 2 wins in a row. That is not good enough to get yourself into the National Hockey League playoffs. The Flames are 3-5-2 in their last 10 games, and that obviously is not good enough for anything. That's below 500 by a long shot, and you're not getting points against what you need to do. Shockingly, they played the 5 games against the Senators, and they only managed to get 5 points from the 10 possible. That's a far cry from what you expect from a team that's in the playoffs. So the Flames on the outside looking in and trying to get back into the playoff race. They're playing the right team to do it. But with the coaching change, will they have enough runway? And that's the big question around the Flames. And can they get more out of guys like Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau to push that team forward? I also think this coaching change will start the evaluation process under Daryl Sutter for next year. Sutter's contract is this season plus 2 more seasons that'll keep him here, and that coincidentally is the same length of contract for general manager Brad Treliving of the Flames. So those 2 guys are tied together for the next 2 seasons after this one. So you would have to believe that there's a big evaluation process coming for the Flames, and that the rest of this season, as they try to push for the playoffs, will also go towards that. Money on it right now, I'm not sure the Flames have enough runway. They'd have to play close to 700 hockey, which is hard to do at the best of times, let alone in this league. And they got to try to limit those 3-point games and give up points to those opponents. It's possible, but it's highly unlikely at this point, and it seems bleak. We'll see how Daryl Sutter reacts, as his first game in charge of the Flames will be Thursday night against the Montreal Canadiens, as the Canadiens come into Calgary. We'll see how that works out. But the inconsistency is the biggest thing that plagues the Flames going forward the rest of this season. We'll see how much they change structurally under the new head coach, but I'm not sure how much Daryl will change. It has been said in his press conferences that this team needs to play with a little bit more speed, and that's not foot speed. That's play the game faster, move the puck, get to the puck, and let's get going here. So the Calgary Flames, new head coach, they start the week off with the Montreal Canadiens. We'll see how that goes, because they need the wins badly, and that's the team that they're chasing is the Montreal Canadiens. Moving over to Manitoba, the Winnipeg Jets have been quiet, but this has been quiet in a good way. If you can look back on the season, they were loud and all for the wrong reasons. There was distractions, there was trades, there was injuries. This team has calmed down, and Paul Maurice has corrected the ship here. The Winnipeg Jets are 7-3 in their last 10 games, and they have found a level of consistency, exactly the opposite of what I was talking about with the Flames. That's what Winnipeg is. You know what you're getting from them every night. They put forth a consistent effort. Hellebuck seems to have sorted himself out a lot. The key, I think, as well to their success is backup goaltender Laurent Brossoit has found his game as well, and has allowed the Jets to rest Hellebuck, and they are not worried about dropping points. So they have a nice resurgence is what I'm calling it, and they've really quieted it down. Dubois settled in. Scheifele, still one of the most underrated centers in the league, has looked really good as of late. Their special teams seem to have hit a nice stride. And this team continues to go forth every day here, putting forth the consistent effort, and they're being rewarded with big wins. You win 7 of every 10 games, you're going to put yourself in a really good position. That's why they're sitting second in the North Division. They're going to try and track down Toronto now. That's the big test for them. That's the right now, Toronto's kind of running away with things. We'll get to Toronto in just a sec here. But Winnipeg is putting up a very valiant effort in this division. And if they don't catch Toronto, they still have an opportunity here to host a playoff series in round 1. And I don't expect them to fall down, if at all, in this North Division the way that they are playing. And if they end up as they started today, they would end up playing the Edmonton Oilers in the first round. And I would have no hesitation picking Winnipeg to win that series because of the way that they're playing right now and the level of consistency that they have found. I forgot to research who their next opponent is coming up this weekend, so I apologize for that. But whoever it is are going to have their work cut out for them. Hope they brought their work boots because they're going to need it versus a very hardworking Winnipeg Jets team. I mentioned the Maple Leafs, so let's jump right there. Toronto also 7-3 in their last 10. They came off of those big victories over the Edmonton Oilers, only to drop back-to-back games to the Vancouver Canucks. So not really sure what to make of Toronto over the last 2 weeks, but they went from this team that looks like they're going to be unstoppable, and they stumbled hard against a team that really stumbled themselves. So Toronto's looking to get back on track here, and Toronto has a big weekend coming up, and they're looking to get back to what made them successful versus the Edmonton Oilers when they shut them out for two straight games. Freddie Anderson's back for them after being injured for a while and was out. They used all 3 goaltenders in that series versus the Oilers. They used 2 different goaltenders versus the Vancouver Canucks. Right now, I think what they need to do is get themselves back to how they were playing a couple of weeks ago when everything and everyone was pushing in the same direction. So the Toronto Maple Leafs are leading this division. They seem to be in control of everything. And I think right now for them, it's not to get complacent and to continue to push. You can lose that lead quite quickly in this league if you are not continually doing the little things. Toronto is in control here, and it's their division right now to lose. A lot of people, including myself, pick them to win this division, and they're showing why we picked them right now because of the way that they play. There's so much skill top to bottom on this roster, and that defensive group is probably the best we've seen in a long time for Toronto, that they need to continue to do that. So the key for me, for them moving forward, is just to continue to maintain and do those little things that made them successful. Sheldon Keefe, the head coach, has done a masterful job here of knowing who to play and when and to pull those strings, and he's had guys in and out of the lineup with injuries. One thing that he has gotten, though, is some massive leadership from some of the older guys. Jason Spezza with 15 points so far this season, a resurgence from him. The almost 40-year-old hockey player has found himself in a leadership role on this Toronto team and has pushed that from the bottom of this roster, giving a little support there. Toronto has definitely relied a lot on their big guys, but they're getting that secondary scoring too. Kerfoot, their third-line center, has played a masterful season as well. He's doing his job. It's allowing those guys on the top lines to do what they do best. And Zach Hyman continues to be one of the more underrated left wingers in this league. It might be because he plays with Austin Matthews a lot, but the way he goes about the game, it complements what Toronto's trying to do. So an up and down last week or so for Toronto, but they have a good weekend coming up ahead of them here. And if they can get back on track, they will continue to lead this division, as I think that they will. The other Ontario team, not so much. The Ottawa Senators are the bottom of this division. They're going to probably remain at the bottom of this division. But this is all part of their rebuild plan, and I really like the overall plan of the Ottawa Senators. Head coach DJ Smith has this team going in the right direction. And by that, I mean this team will come and outwork you any day of the week. Being a Flames fan myself, I was witness to that over the 5 games we played against the Ottawa Senators, and there was one thing that was consistent. They didn't stop. They didn't give up one bit. No matter which way, which direction the game was going, the team continued to push on, push forward. Guys like Kachuk and Norris and Batherson would continue to come at you, and Colin White had some big goals for Ottawa over the last couple of weeks. They are only 5-5 in their last 10 games, currently coming off of this series versus Edmonton Oilers, where they dropped the game. So it's okay for them, though, to drop those games, because what this team is working towards is the next step for the Ottawa Senators, and that next step for them is to push up and be more competitive. They've been very competitive this season so far, despite the record, what the record will tell you. This team is in games, and they just need to have those players to take a next step up. Drake Batherson has been tremendous for them. He had goals in 5 straight games at one point last week. Good for him. He's continually developing. He was a 4th-round draft pick. He looks really good for Ottawa, and that's what they're going to need. They're going to need those secondary guys to come in there and start working. Thomas Chabot on the back end has been a good defenseman for Ottawa. He leads them back there in ice time. He's top 5 in the NHL in overall ice time, so he's doing what he needs to do to help develop. The one question mark where most people have in Ottawa is Matt Murray in goal and the backups that they have used. Are they good enough back there to get them the wins? Yes, Matt Murray has won 2 Stanley Cups behind some strong Pittsburgh teams. He knows what it takes to win. He's been there. That experience can't be counted out, but you can't rely on him. It doesn't seem to be consistently there to make the saves when needed. But if they can get some average goaltending for Matt Murray and have a backup goaltender or a platoon goaltender or in a tandem there, and give them consistent goaltending, that team will be a lot better next season, and I expect them to take a step forward. As for the rest of this season, they're just going to continue to try to develop these guys. DJ Smith has this team working hard, and whenever you watch the Ottawa Senators, that's the one thing you'll notice is those guys are playing quick, they're trying their best, and they're going to work hard. So if you're not going to work hard, they're going to power past you. It's tremendous to watch how Ottawa is playing right now, and it's tremendous to watch how the young kids are starting to blossom. Brady Kachuk is one of the best players in this league that I don't think gets talked about enough either. Maybe he gets talked about a little bit more around the Ottawa area, but you got to respect the way those guys play the game and how there's no quit there. Josh Norris is quietly one of the best young centers in this league as well. I really have high hopes for them. So Ottawa, not going to be a playoff team, I don't believe, but they're going to give you good value for your entertainment dollars if you're tuning in to watch an Ottawa Senators hockey game. The last team in this division is the Montreal Canadiens. They made the coaching change a few weeks ago. They made a goaltending coach change last week. They brought in Sean Burke, which I really like. Sean Burke will be a general manager in the National Hockey League sooner than later, I believe. A bright hockey mind. And they made the move for a couple of reasons in goaltending. Obviously, Carey Price has struggled a little bit here. So it's a bit of a message to Carey to maybe buy in a little bit more, for Carey to try and do more to get back to his game. It also sounded like there was a philosophical difference in-house in Montreal between a few in the goaltending area. But this, with Sean Burke there, isn't the coach. He came in as a little bit higher than that, and he's going to help maybe calm the situation down there in Montreal. They seem to be panicking because of all the money they spent in the offseason. They've spent the most in the entire league in the offseason to try and be competitive coming into this season to push for the playoffs. I had Montreal higher in my preseason rankings. They're kind of failing for me right now, but they're right here. They're in a good spot because they're a few points up on Calgary. They're playing Calgary starting Thursday night. And if they can win these games against Calgary, plus the games in hand that they have, Montreal should put themselves in a very good spot to control their own destiny. It's in their hands right now if they can take care of their business. There are question marks up front with Montreal. Is Kotkaniemi and Suzuki strong enough to continue to push those guys down the center, to push those lines as they are the centermen? Can they get more out of Philip Deneau? He's been really good for them in the past. He's a good two-way center. Guys like Josh Anderson on the wing will need to do a little bit more. Gallagher a little bit more. This Montreal team doesn't have that high-end skilled guy that a lot of teams lean on. They've got a lot of guys that are going to work hard and a lot of guys that need to do it, and they need to do it in a committee form. So Montreal is in tough going forward here, but in a good spot at the same time, if that makes any sense. They're one of those teams that you could see going one way or the other, and you can make the case and be correct in making your case. They need to find themselves a level of consistency going forward here and go back to what they were doing early in the season, and that was overpowering and battling over teams. They haven't been doing that as lately. They haven't been as hard to play against as of late. It shows in their record at 3-2-5. They're getting a lot of games to the extra, but they're not winning those games in the extra frame or the shootout. So interested to see what this series versus the Flames looks like for two reasons. For the Flames trying to chase Montreal and for Montreal trying to get away from the Flames. So we got a big race there going. And we're going to say that a lot over the next month or so is big game. This is also a big game. Every game is going to be a big game and a proverbial four-pointer if you can take care of your business. And I wonder how many three-point games we get with that loser point. Montreal feasted on that the last little while here with those 5 overtime and shootout losses. So that's where we stand right now in the North Division. Toronto leading the way, slightly ahead of Winnipeg, Edmonton, Montreal, who are in the playoff spots right now. Calgary trying to chase down Montreal. Vancouver, only a couple points behind Calgary, but it seems like a long shot for Vancouver. And definitely Ottawa is not going to make it. The North Division has provided a lot of storylines, have provided a lot of intrigue around the league as well. Has this team. This division is the highest scoring division in the National Hockey League this season. We've seen a lot of goals and a lot of excitement, a lot of high scoring games. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon either. So as this continues to go ahead, we're definitely going to see some more action from the North Division here. And we'll go through another rundown of this on another show in a couple of weeks here as we get closer and closer to the playoffs race. Trade deadline coming up at the beginning of April as well. So some things to look forward to if you are a hockey fan in Canada, because there's a lot to get through as well. As for the rest of the National Hockey League, there's some interesting races going on south of the border. Excuse me. I'm going to start with the Minnesota Wild. They all of a sudden became a team that are fun to watch. They're taking on and beating teams like the Avalanche and the Golden Knights. They find themselves at the top of that division as I record this. And they look good doing it. Those reverse retros, they look really slick on the ice. They're getting good goaltending from both Cam Talbot, and I'm going to butcher the Finn goaltender's name, so I'm just going to skip past it, who has come in here, and he has solidified himself a little bit here in the National Hockey League. Kaprizov up front is leading the way, but I don't think enough is being made about the structure that Dean Evanson has this team playing with. Spurgeon and Suter on the back end leading the way here for this team. Matt Dumba scored a nice goal the other day. So they're getting contributions from their back end. They're looking good in their structure. They're playing with pace. This is no longer the Jacques Lemaire, shut it down, hold back Minnesota Wild. This is a push forward. Let's go and attack this game, and let's win some series this way. And they've done just that. They look good. They look tremendous. Again, sitting at the top of that division. Interesting to see how that shakes down, because you have those powerhouses with Vegas and with Colorado there, although Colorado hasn't been the powerhouse that we thought they were going to be yet. They have suffered with some injuries and some things, and Nathan McKinnon's been in and out of the lineup as well. So Minnesota, they have it in sights. They're playing really good hockey, and interesting to see how that shapes up for them. They are using their depth to their advantage, and Kaprizov has changed the dynamic of that forward group. If you haven't seen a Minnesota Wild game, I encourage you to go watch one, just because the watchable factor of this team right now. We talked about Colorado briefly there as well. The Avalanche looking better at times, but at times they're not looking as good. They seem to be a team that's waiting for one extra thing to happen. Maybe they're one piece away. Maybe it's getting all these injuries taken care of. The Avalanche aren't winning games the way that we thought they were going to win games. They're having to grind some games out here, and that's interesting to watch down the stretch how they go about doing that, because one team that does like to grind out wins is the Vegas Golden Knights. They look good, except for those gold helmets that they wear. The Knights go forward every night. You know what you're getting from them. They're going to work hard, and they now have the high-end skill with Stone and Pietrangelo there that are allowing them to win. Marc-Andre Fleury has been absolutely phenomenal, and right now probably your Vezina leader across the National Hockey League. So interesting to watch how that shapes up going down the stretch in that division as well. St. Louis seems to be teetering in and out as well, but Minnesota, who leads that division, has three powerhouses teams chasing them down, but they're holding their own, and it's making for a very exciting race in that division. Not much more to talk about around the National Hockey League that I wanted to bring up today on the show. We'll do another show down the road here where we'll talk more about the Eastern teams and more about what's going on at that end of things. I did mention them in the last show as well, so we'll come back to that. I wanted to set some time aside today as well to talk about the Western Hockey League and the job that the WHL has gone through to get back onto the ice here. It wasn't easy for them. There was a lot of logistics that they had to go through and jump through. Even teams like the Calgary Hitmen had to jump through some hoops in order for them to play, as they play on the reserve just outside of Calgary. But they've done a tremendous job here from no matter what they're doing here. BC's on their quarantine right now. The BC division teams are on their quarantine now. They're going to get playing later on here in March. The Saskatchewan, or they're calling it the East Bubble because they have the two Manitoba teams. They're going to get underway this weekend. Excited to see those games go and ahead. They've done a really good job to get that hub city set up in Regina. I'm excited to see how that shakes down. Talking with Rod Peterson of the Rod Peterson Show. He's going to be calling some of the Regina games. The excitement out there is awesome, and the energy out there is awesome as these teams are ready to go at it and ready to battle for that division. We're still not sure on any playoffs for the Western Hockey League, and some of the schedules like in Alberta here where we're only getting a week or two out at a time, it still feels like the step in the right direction. It still feels the excitement of the league. Of course, the U.S. teams are going. I don't want to leave them out. They're about to get underway as well. They're doing their quarantine as they're setting up a U.S. hub, essentially. So what we have seen so far, though, is just the Central Division, or AKA Alberta teams, go head-to-head here. We talked in the last show about the first weekend matchups. We're coming off another successful weekend. The Calgary Hitmen, Red Deer Rebels, they split a series. The Oil Kings flexed their muscles again as they played the Medicine Hat Tigers. The one thing I've noticed is the competitiveness of these games is quite close. These teams have no preseason. Most of these teams are very close to 1 year without playing a single game. But the hockey's been good, and the hockey has been competitive, and these guys have gone out there and they've laid it on the line. Really like what the Hitmen did, because they were the last team in this Alberta, the Alberta teams, because there's 5 of them. They sat out the first weekend, and they went through playing the Red Deer Rebels this past weekend, and Red Deer, of course, the weekend before played their 2 games versus the Medicine Hat Tigers. But the Hitmen were so good in that first game. A shutout for Mr. Peters there in goal for them. They look good and energized by just being on the rink, being at the rink again and on the ice again. And it was a credit to the Calgary Hitmen for the way that they went about that and are able to get back on the ice. And they're not the only team. Like the Leopard Hurricanes had this past weekend off. They are coming up this weekend. They will play the Red Deer Rebels, who now have had 2 weekends straight of hockey. The Hurricanes came off the absolute shellacking they had their first weekend from the Edmonton Oil Kings. They're now preparing themselves to go back onto the ice. And you see how just the protocols I've gone through, and you see the excitement of these guys, and you watch the hockey. I'm in the Lethbridge area myself, which is why I brought the Hurricanes up. You watch these guys go about preparing for these games, and you watch the coaching staffs and the general managers talk in the media and how excited they are just to be playing hockey. 24-game schedule. Who knows if there's playoffs, but it's an opportunity for these guys to show their talent and their ability. A lot of talk around the National Hockey League's draft for draft-eligible players, whether that's going to be pushed back or not. It's not mattering to these kids right now because they're doing what they want to do, and that's play the game, and they're doing it for the love of the game, and they're allowing these kids a chance to fulfill some dreams. 20-year-olds who are aging out of the system, they have a chance to finish off their careers the way that they should. They're not going to get the fan send-off that they normally would in a regular year, which is unfortunate because that's one of the highlights of every season for me personally, is giving those guys a send-off because they worked hard for 4 years, 3 years for some of them, and then now they're off into the sunset, whatever the next chapter is for them. So I'm happy for them. I'm happy for the draft-eligible guys to be able to show and put a little bit more video out there on themselves, try and push their draft stock up a little bit. I'm happy for those guys as well, but I'm also happy for the rookies who are not going to lose that year of development as well. You got a lot of 16-year-olds turning 17-year-olds who are just about to break into the Western Hockey League or the CHL teams, the Canadian Hockey League teams, and even in the Alberta Junior Hockey League leagues, you know, the SJHL, AJHL, BCHL, having a chance to step into those roles and start your career and start your progression is huge for some of these guys. A case of example is the highly touted Connor Bedard, who is going to play for the Regina Pats this season. The exceptional status granted to him. He now has an opportunity to go to the next level and to continue to progress his career. So I'm happy for those age groups and those guys that get a chance. And I'm just happy that the Western Hockey League is back. It'll be more interesting as the season gets along. We have more to report on, like the Saskatchewan or the East Hub, like the BC division getting underway, and those U.S. teams start to face off back-to-back here. So it's a lot going forward for the Western Hockey League. And the next step in the Canadian Hockey Leagues is to try and get the Ontario Hockey League to start their season up. It sounds like they're looking at a 24-game schedule starting in April. That's the last that I've heard personally, and I hope that they can get something going here that allows those kids the same opportunity that the players in the Western Hockey League are getting currently, as well as the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Hopefully they can get their season back and going. They've stopped and started here a couple of times, and hopefully they can finish something. All of this starting and stopping in hub cities and late goings of the Ontario Hockey League leads to the question, is there going to be a Memorial Cup this season? That's hard to say at this point because we can't obviously in the COVID-19 era we're living in right now, it's hard to predict the future of anything, let alone hockey, and what that's going to look like in June and July. Odds on right now, if I were to be a betting man and put that out there, I'm not sure we're going to get the Memorial Cup this year, and I hope I'm 1,000% wrong on that. I just don't see a way that it's going to happen right now, which is unfortunate. There's no playoffs for any of the three Canadian Hockey leagues. There's no playoff set. There's nothing out there right now that's going to allow them to even have a league champion, let alone a Canadian champion. So it's unfortunate in that aspect, but we're going to look on the bright side, and the bright side is that we got players back and playing, and hopefully the Ontario Hockey League can get their league up and going. So I'm excited for those to get going. Also getting going is the Alberta Junior Hockey League. I had Riley Pollock on the show and Gino DePaoli on the show, both play-by-play guys from that league who are very excited that we're going to get games going. The Oilers in Okotoks are going to take on the Brooks Bandits to kick off the season. Those are usually the powerhouse teams. Both of them have great recruitment and great history there in the league. So it's going to be good to see those teams go on head-to-head. It's going to be good to hear my pal Gino DePaoli calling that game. It's going to be good to be able to have the Alberta Junior Hockey League back. And remember, those who are fans of the league will remember they started the year almost on schedule last fall, but then they had to break it off because of some COVID scares. They're back. They're going to try and make another go of it. They're going to try and continue to reward a champion in that league, and I commend them for it. Hopefully it'll go forward. My guest next week is also a big fan of that league, and we're going to have more on the Alberta Junior Hockey League on the next episode of the Double Digit Hockey Show, and I'm excited for that to go forward. Lots around the hockey world to go. Lots around the hockey world to talk about, but I'd be remiss if I didn't hit on the International Women's Day we've had this past week. Being in Southern Alberta, I have an opportunity to listen to the Calgary radio station, and Sandra Bustina was on the Fan 960, and she did a bunch of interviews with some really incredible female athletes. One of them was Jana Heffert, and then on the 31 Thoughts podcast, they also had the commissioner of the Women's Hockey League as well on there. And what I noticed from hearing these ladies talk, the one thing that kept coming back is how passionate these ladies were about their sports. They had more than just hockey ladies on. They had some cross-country skiers and others on. It was fantastic to listen to these ladies and celebrate the athletes of these ladies' leagues. Jana Heffert talked a lot about the 2010 Salt Lake Games where Canada defeats the United States to win the gold medal. She talked about the passion of the rivalry. They talked about the bubble, the women's bubble. Unfortunately, the NWHL's bubble that unfortunately had to stop, but it was announced that's coming back. So excited for that and looking forward to that event continuing. But I wanted to express my appreciation for the females and sort of the women and their going forward and their leagues, their sports, whatever they participate in and the passion that they showed. And we can learn from that. Absolutely. I encourage you when the NWHL starts back up to finish their bubble to watch those games and watch how those ladies compete, because their compete level is high. The quality of hockey is high, and nothing is more rewarding than watching athletes who compete get rewarded for their efforts. And that doesn't mean winning a championship. That means being on a hockey team or a luge team or whatever your sport is and being successful at it, having a good run, having a good game, those kind of things. And it's tremendous to see that push forward. The stigma that play like a girl is a bad thing needs to end, in my opinion, because you got great athletes and they do great things. And to celebrate them it was Monday that we were celebrating them, this past Monday that just passed, International Women's Day. So I celebrate with everyone who's out there celebrating, and I commend these athletes and tell them to keep going forward. Tell them to keep pressing on and encourage your girls at home that you come across to continue to push forward and they can be anything they want to be. And if they want to be an athlete, there's a road there for them. And they've got great role models out there. If you have an opportunity, look on the Fan 960's webpage at Sportsnet 960, The Fan in Calgary, and look up some of those interviews. I encourage you to listen to those as well because they're just great. They're awesome. They celebrate the women in the games, and not enough can be said about it. Even so much that I might go back and watch that 2010 gold medal game, Canada-US, because it's one of the best games I've ever watched across the hockey world. Tremendous. Thank you for joining me today on the show. A lot we have gotten through here. Great NHL talk, some WHL talk, and also the Alberta Junior Hockey League talk. Next week on the show, we got great guests lined up. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you enjoyed the Just John segment of the show. Just did a lot today, housekeeping things. I was proud to sit down here today and to do this show. It's Always a privilege to sit down and do a show solo. It's harder to do when you have no guests because you got to do the entire content yourself. So I appreciate you sticking through this entire show with me. Don't forget to check out me on social media at VintageJohnny84 or my show at Double Digit Hockey. That's HKY on the social media platforms. Thank you for checking me out. This has been the Hockey. Wow, I can't even tell my own show. This has been the Double Digit Hockey show here on ASTV Productions. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll talk to you at another time.